Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. If you follow my Boxing Squared Twitter account, boxing_squared, you will have seen that I broke the news that Junior Fa and Joey Dawejko will no longer be fighting in Deadwood, South Dakota on March 9th. It's off.
Really?
Ah. So I had been preparing to do a preview piece on that matchup because it's an interesting step up for Fa in particular, because Dawejko, he does have some chops, he's a tough customer in the ring. So I had approached Joey Dawejko for comment to get his take on the challenge that Fa represented, and also how his preparations in general had been going, and so on and so forth. But very quickly Dawejko, he came back to me to say, well actually, I'm now no longer going to face Fa, seen on screen here, having taken on a bigger challenge with details of that soon to be announced. And I can only take from that the new opponent, it must be an established contender of some sort in the heavyweight division. But I'll look to follow up on that when details are released in due course. So the obvious question then becomes, well, what about Junior Fa? He's been preparing for several weeks for Dawejko. Him and his trainer Doug Viney, they've travelled to the United States for what is the biggest step up to date for Fa. So a lot of time, effort and money has gone into these preparations, and now the rug has been pulled out from under them. I'm sure it's frustrating for Fa in some sense, but more on that mental side of the game soon, because there is some interesting stuff that I do want to get into that Fa has opened up on. The tentative opponent that is now listed is the 14-1-1 Craig Lewis, who, judging from his BoxRec profile, is going to be an easier mark than Dawejko would have been. He may have fewer losses on his record than Dawejko, but the caliber of opposition is much lower, and really there's nothing of note in the victories that is on Lewis's record. There's actually a draw there with low-level journeyman Jamal Woods, who has over 30 losses. It's actually closer to 40. Interestingly though, there's also a no contest against Fred Latham, who was Fa's last opponent. And it does look like Craig Lewis won that matchup, but for whatever reason, it was later declared a no contest. If you have some details on that, please let me know what happened in that case. I would note that KiwiBox, he actually has some footage of Lewis up on his channel, so make sure to check that out at some point. So what do I think of this late stand-in opponent for Junior Fa? Not much. I don't think he will provide much of a challenge for the New Zealander, who is in career best shape right now, and more on that in a moment. I think Fa, he would have got a lot more out of facing Dawejko, who's a tough guy and not without pedigree, being a former youth world champion. But with all the time, effort and money that has been put into this March 9th date for Deadwood, South Dakota, Fa, he just had to go through with it, and then he just has to move on to the next one. They just had to do it. They have to go through with the date. And more than likely he wins in the first few rounds, and hopefully we do see his newly minted aggressive style in action, as we did against Fred Latham back in late 2017. I had approached Junior Fa directly for some comment for this video, just to touch on the late change there, get his thoughts, but at the time of this video being published, he hadn't come back to me. Mentally, is it a blow given all that preparation work, all the hours, weeks, months that has gone into preparing for this date? Some way it probably is, but I'm sure he's taking it all in his stride, because basically, well, there's not much else he can do really. That brings me to the next topic that I did want to get into regarding Junior Fa's development, his evolving mental strength. Fa, he has been working with mental performance coach David Neath of late, and there was a very interesting post Fa shared with his Facebook followers. He says, mental performance is the biggest factor of success. If your mind ain't right, then nothing will work. David Neath is the best at what he does. I'm honoured to have him working with me. And Fa has actually written a testimony for Neath's website, which provides a very interesting insight into Fa's previous struggles mentally and how he's now working through them. And I do want to go through some of it and then a few thoughts. So Fa says, I've never been one to think that a mental performance coach is vital to sport, but just one session with Big Dave was more than enough to turn me from skeptic to a believer. One thing I've always struggled with is vocalizing my belief in my boxing ability. In other words, I was not confident. One session with Dave changed that. I remember him telling me that I need to give myself permission. Permission to be world champion, permission to be great. That has stuck with me since our first session. I have regular training camps that are very strenuous on my mind and body. I struggle to mentally keep up with trainings at times, and so he steps in and gives me the tools I need to help myself during dark times. Regular sessions with him are vital for my all-round fight preparations. He's available anytime, even when I'm out of the country. I call him before every fight for final mental preparations, which make a huge difference to my performance. Okay, so it's clear to me the changes that Far has been making in the past year to his setup in general, so new trainer, new training techniques, and the addition of a mental skills coach in David Neath, it's working for him. It's really working for him. Far's general demeanour and even his style in the ring, it's changed markedly. He does look confident now. He looks like he believes in himself. And the fact that Far himself is now freely admitting that he was gripped by confidence issues previously, it shows us his mindset has changed. And I'm sure he wouldn't have imagined even a year ago he would admit things like he has with confidence issues publicly. So it shows you the change in mindset. Some may say that all of this proves that Far was or is somewhat mentally weak. But I think I would couch it more as he just hadn't honed his mind to believe that he was good enough to foot it with the best. And I'm sure with his pair of wins over Joseph Parker in the amateurs and other good amateur performances, he had good pedigree in the amateurs. He knew to some extent, to some degree, he was good. But he clearly didn't believe that he could go on and push on to be a top level boxer. And sometimes people do need a push mentally to spur them on to reach their potential, reach their goals. I mean, a number of years ago, it would have been a really taboo thing to say you had a mental skills coach. People would have looked at you sideways. But increasingly, it is becoming a norm for a lot of top athletes and sporting teams. The All Blacks are a good example. They've used the services of mental skills coaches Siri Evans and Gilbert Inoka over a number of years. And they've romped to be two-time World Cup champions in the past decade. And generally, they've excelled to a level that has been hard for other teams to keep up with in the past 10 years. And I would note Siri Evans is actually working with Joseph Parker as well. So what Far is doing, it's not unusual. Rather, he's identified he needs some help to build his mental strength and believe in himself, which sometimes it can be a hard thing to do. So the Dawejko pullout is sure to have tested his resolve to a degree, but I guarantee he's much better equipped now to deal with adversity than he once would. The quotes from Junior Far in that testimonial, it also touched on training, and this is important. It's really helped him push through the dark times, as he put it, and improve himself. And I think the evidence of the improvement, it's clear. A year ago he weighed 277 pounds, and then in late 2017 he was 262 for Fred Latham. Since then he's trimmed down to 251, which was the weight that we heard in mid-February, about the 18th, 19th of February. And it's clear, judging by some of what's running in the background now, he's come a long way even since that Latham matchup. And an Instagram post of Far jumping into an ice bath, it demonstrates how much leaner, how much trimmer he really is now. And what I'm going to do now is just have a look on screen now. So this is the comparison just from late 2017 to now. The training, the mental skills work, it's clearly doing a job to put Junior Far, a good job, to put Far in the best headspace and shape of his career. March 9th, it may not be the encounter that originally it promised to be, but Far, he is putting the effort in to ensure his best foot is forward in 2018. Good luck to him. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.
How far down?
All the way down. All the way down, buddy, including your shoulders.
Yeah. Lower.
Shoulders down.
Yeah. Put your head up on there. Watch out, watch out. Put your, move your feet away from there. Move your feet away from there. Yeah, okay, ready?